When my daughter-in-law threw a glass of wine in my face, I saw not just betrayal, but the end of the illusion of family harmony. She considered the house her trophy, but I, betrayed by my son and his wife, sold it in a matter of weeks, took everything, and never returned. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is where you are now. I straightened my tie in the car window before walking to the front door, checking that the knot sat properly centered. The leather document folder felt substantial under my arm, and the velvet jewelry box pressed against my chest through my jacket pocket. Everything had to be perfect for this moment. I'd rehearsed my speech during the drive from my place, imagining Logan's face when I announced what I'd decided. This house, this beautiful Spanish villa in Coral Gables, would officially become his. Violet opened the door before I could ring the bell. "Elbert, right on time." Her smile pulled tight across her teeth, not quite reaching her eyes. She wore a dress I didn't recognize, dark blue, expensive looking, with jewelry that caught the entryway light. "Come in. I made your favorite dishes." Had she? I couldn't remember telling her what those were. The dining room table gleamed under the chandelier, set with china I'd never seen before. New furniture crowded the space, a mahogany sideboard, upholstered chairs with brass studs. I'd owned this house for 32 years, inherited it from my parents who'd gotten it from my grandparents in 1960, and I barely recognized it anymore. Wine bottles stood open on the sideboard, labels facing out. French, expensive. "Dad." Logan emerged from the kitchen, wiping his hands on a dish towel. He looked thinner than last month, his shoulders hunched forward. "Thanks for coming." "Of course I came." I set the document folder on the side table, keeping the jewelry box in my pocket for now. "This is important." We sat. Violet poured wine into crystal glasses I'd never purchased, filling hers nearly to the rim. Logan's hands worried at his napkin, folding and refolding the corner. The first course appeared. She'd hired someone to cook, I realized, seeing the professional plating. More expense. I waited until she'd finished serving. The moment felt ceremonial, significant. I retrieved the document folder and placed it carefully on the table between us, smoothing the leather with my palm. "Logan, Violet, I wanted tonight to be special." I opened the folder, revealing the property deed on top, my grandfather's signature still visible in faded blue ink at the bottom. This house has been in the Cooper family for 3 generations. My grandfather bought it in 1960, when Coral Gables was still developing. He paid $12,000 for it. Violet leaned forward, her eyes locked on the papers. "He passed it to my parents, who lived here for 40 years. They passed it to me. And now—" I paused, wanting the words to carry proper weight. "Now I'm ready to pass it to you, Logan. Next week, I've arranged for a notary to make the transfer official. The house will be yours." "Finally!" Violet's voice cracked across the table like a whip. "Do you know how long we've been waiting? 3 years, Elbert. 3 years of our lives in limbo." I blinked, confused. "Waiting? Violet, I don't understand. I'm giving you the house to live in, to raise your family in—" "Live in?" She laughed sharp and high. "We don't want to live here. We want what's ours. I have buyers lined up. 2.1 million. We could finally start our real life, move to a better neighborhood, but you keep stringing us along with your sentimental garbage about family traditions." The room tilted slightly. "Buyers? You want to sell it?" "Of course we want to sell it. That's the whole point." She stood now, her chair scraping back. "What did you think? That we'd waste our best years in this outdated house, in your outdated neighborhood, playing happy family? We need that money, Elbert. We've earned it by putting up with your endless delays and your controlling—" "I'm not trying to control anyone." I kept my voice level, the way I'd learned to do in court when proceedings turned heated. The house was meant as a home, for family, for generations. We don't care about your generations. Her hands slapped the table, rattling the crystal. "I already found buyers who'll pay 2.1 million. That's our ticket out, our chance to actually build something. But you pathetic old manipulator, you think you can keep us hostage with your money." Logan stared at his plate. His knuckles had gone white around the napkin. "Logan," I turned to my son, searching for recognition in his face. "Did you know about this? About selling?" He opened his mouth. Nothing came out. His eyes stayed fixed downward. Of course he knew. Violet grabbed her wine glass. He's my husband. But he's too weak to stand up to you. Too afraid of disappointing Daddy? Well, I'm not afraid. This is our house. We've earned it. The wine hit my face cold and sharp, red liquid splashing across my vision. It soaked into my white shirt, dripped from my chin onto the papers I'd laid so carefully on the table. The documents darkened at the edges, blooming with red stains. You pathetic old man, Violet hissed. You think you can control us with your money? This is our house. We earned it. I stood slowly. Wine dripped from my collar, pooling on my shirt. My hands moved deliberately. I set down my napkin, gathered the wine-stained documents, tucked them back into the folder. The velvet jewelry box remained in my pocket, ungiven. Logan hadn't moved, hadn't spoken, hadn't looked at me once. I walked to the door. Behind me, Violet's voice rose again. See? I told you your father never respected us. I told you he'd never let go. The front door closed behind me with a soft click. I walked to my car, each step measured. My hand trembled when I reached for the door handle, the first brake in control, and I gripped it harder until the shaking stopped. Inside the car, I adjusted the rearview mirror. The wine-stained shirt collar reflected back at me, dark and damning. I sat in that driveway for several minutes before starting the engine. The drive to Coconut Grove usually took 15 minutes. That night, I missed my exit, caught in some blank space between thinking and not thinking. A horn blared behind me when I corrected too slowly. My knuckles ached from gripping the steering wheel. At every red light, I looked down at the wine stains spreading across my chest, dark and sticky. My condo building rose against the night sky, modest compared to the Spanish villa. I'd moved here 3 years ago after retirement, wanting something simple, manageable. 2 bedrooms, balcony facing the ocean. Rental furniture I'd never bothered to replace. The key stuck in the lock the way it always did, and I had to jiggle it twice before the door opened. I didn't turn on the lights immediately, just stood in the entryway, listening to the silence. After a moment, I walked to the bathroom and flipped the switch. The mirror showed me clearly. A 64-year-old man with gray hair, wine splattered across his white shirt like evidence at a crime scene. I touched the stain, felt where it had dried stiff against the fabric, traced the edge of it with one finger. My reflection stared back. When had I gotten so old? I couldn't sleep. The wine had dried completely now, the shirt uncomfortable and tight. I should have changed it, should have thrown it in the wash, but I didn't. Instead, I walked to the balcony and sat in the wicker chair I'd bought at a discount store. Below, the ocean moved in darkness. Waves I could hear but not see. The wine stain felt like a brand. I kept touching it, confirming it was real. 3 years ago, Logan had come to my retirement party at the courthouse. 30 years on the bench, and they'd given me a plaque and a speech about justice and fairness. Logan had pulled me aside near the end, away from the others. Dad, I know this is asking a lot, but Violet and I hit some financial turbulence. Bad investment timing. Could we stay at the Coral Gables house temporarily? Just until we get back on our feet? 6 months? Maybe a year? I'd said yes before he finished asking. Of course, son. That's what family does. Don't worry about rent. Just focus on getting stable. I'll keep handling the property taxes and insurance. He'd hugged me, thanked me, said I was saving them. 6 months became a year, became 2 years. I never asked when they'd leave because I didn't want them to. I liked knowing they were in the house my grandfather built, keeping the family legacy alive. Year 2, Logan called on a Tuesday. Dad, Violet has this amazing business opportunity. We just need $25,000 to get started. It's going to be huge. She's already got clients lined up. I wrote the check that afternoon, drove to the villa to hand it to him personally. He'd seemed nervous, shuffling his feet in the doorway. Violet had stayed in the back room, called out a thank you I barely heard. That was 2 years ago. The business never materialized. The money was never mentioned again. When I asked about it once, casually, Logan had changed the subject to the weather. I reached up and touched the wine stain again. Still there. Last Thanksgiving, I'd asked if I should bring anything to dinner. Violet's voice on the phone had been matter-of-fact, almost kind. Elbert, you don't need to come for Thanksgiving this year. We're having some of our friends over. Younger crowd, you know. You'd probably be bored. Maybe we'll do Christmas? We didn't do Christmas. The sky began to pale, darkness shifting to gray. I went inside and retrieved the wine-stained documents from where I'd set them on the entry table, spread them across my small dining table. Property deed, transfer forms, insurance records. I'd been paying $18,000 a year in property taxes, $4,500 in insurance, utilities, maintenance, 3 years of that, plus the $25,000 loan, $115,000 roughly, and they'd already found buyers. $2.1 million, she'd said, already found them, while living rent-free in my house, spending my money on French wine and designer clothes and furniture I'd never approved. They were never grateful. They were waiting for me to be generous enough to let go completely, waiting for me to transfer ownership so they could cash out. 3 years of my life, and I was nothing more than an obstacle to their real estate transaction. Logan hadn't said a single word, not when she threw the wine, not when she called me a manipulator, not when I walked out. He'd sat there staring at his plate, choosing her over me without even the courage to admit what he was choosing. Dawn broke fully. I stood and walked back to the bathroom mirror. The wine stain on my collar looked almost black in the morning light. I studied my face again, the lines around my eyes, the gray in my hair. I'd spent 3 decades on the bench, weighing evidence, applying law, delivering justice. I knew the difference between mercy and being a fool. I had extended mercy. They saw weakness. I touched the wine stain one last time, then slowly unbuttoned the shirt, folded it carefully, precisely, the way I'd folded my judicial robes at the end of each day. I placed it in the bottom drawer of my dresser. Evidence, not to be discarded. Then I opened my laptop and sat down at the dining table. The wine-stained property documents spread before me like case files. Time to apply the law. The laptop screen glowed in the pre-dawn darkness. I opened a blank spreadsheet and titled it Evidence.lsx, a habit from my judicial days when every case needed documentation, categorization, proof. The next 2 weeks passed in methodical analysis. My small dining table transformed into a workspace. Documents spread in organized piles, yellow legal pads covered in numbered lists, my laptop perpetually open to Florida property law websites. I worked the way I'd worked for 30 years on the bench, systematically, thoroughly, without emotion clouding judgment. First, the property documents. I examined every page. The original deed from 1960, my grandfather's signature in faded blue ink, the transfer to my parents in 1978, the transfer to me in 1993 after my father passed. Every single document carried one name, Cooper. My name, not Logan's, not Violet's, just mine. The property tax receipts told their own story. $18,000 per year for 3 years. $54,000 total, all paid from my retirement account. I found the insurance policies, my name, my payments, $4,500 annually. Another $15,000 over 3 years. Utility bills, all in my name, roughly $7,000 per year. $22,000 more. Then the loan. I located the canceled check. $25,000. Memo line reading, for Violet's business venture. I remembered Logan's voice on the phone that day, excited, promising it would be huge. The business never materialized. The money never came back, never even mentioned again. I entered each number into the spreadsheet, double-checking against receipts. The keyboard clicked steadily in the quiet condo. When the final calculation appeared, $15,000, I stared at it for a long moment. Then I saved the file and closed the laptop. The legal research took another 3 days. Florida statutes, Section 83.5, was unambiguous. A property owner could terminate occupancy with 30 days written notice when no lease agreement existed. I read the statute 4 times, highlighted relevant passages, copied them into a document labeled Legal Framework. What kind of lease do you have with family? None. Because you trust them. Because you believe blood means something. By the second week, I had my strategy. I pulled out a yellow legal pad, the same kind I'd used for 30 years in chambers, and wrote at the top, 5-step plan. Step 1. Retain real estate attorney for expedited legal sale. Step 2. Remove all personal property and family heirlooms before notification. Step 3. Secure buyer willing to accept standard closing timeline. Step 4. Serve legal 30-day notice to occupants. Step 5. Complete transaction and sever all contact permanently. I photographed the page with my phone, then circled Step 1. Below it, I wrote, Marcus Webb? With a question mark. Marcus had handled real estate cases in my courtroom years ago. Sharp, efficient, no tolerance for emotional complications. The hardest decision came on day 12. I opened my desk drawer and retrieved my current will. Single page, straightforward language. Logan Cooper, sole beneficiary. Retirement fund, $340,000. Investment portfolio, $280,000. Total, $620,000. I picked up my phone and scrolled to Diane Morrison's contact. My finger hovered over her name. Estate attorney, colleague for 2 decades, someone who knew my history. I pressed the button. Diane, it's Elbert Cooper. I need to revoke my current will and draft a new one. Complete removal of primary beneficiary. Her pause stretched long. Elbert, that's... Are you sure? Logan is your only son. Maybe you should wait until... I'm certain. Can you fit me in this week? Friday afternoon? I'll be there. After hanging up, I sat motionless for several minutes. This wasn't anger. Anger fades. This was correction of error. The same process I'd applied countless times from the bench when reviewing cases built on false premises. Evening of the 14th day, I called Logan's number. It rang 4 times, went to voicemail. I hung up and dialed again. Voicemail. 3rd call. 4th call. Each rejection noted mentally like evidence accumulating. On the 5th attempt, he answered, Dad, look, I've been meaning to call. I need to collect some documents from the house. I'll be there Wednesday at 10 a.m. Please be home. Documents? What documents? Dad, I'm sorry about Violet. She was just upset. She didn't mean... Wednesday, 10 a.m. I ended the call and set the phone down with deliberate care, the way I'd close case files after rendering final judgment. My hand didn't shake this time. The trembling from 2 weeks ago had vanished completely, replaced by something colder and more durable. I looked at my reflection in the darkened laptop screen. For 30 years, I'd maintained courtroom composure while delivering sentences that changed lives. I'd mastered the ability to speak with absolute authority, to make people understand through tone alone that discussion had ended and decision had been made. Logan heard it, that shift. 3 years of softness, patience, fatherly accommodation, erased in 8 words. He knew something fundamental had changed. Perfect. He should know. They both should. I opened my desk drawer and looked at the wine-stained shirt, folded precisely where I'd placed it 2 weeks earlier. Evidence, still preserved. Not from sentimentality, but from principle. The stain had darkened to almost black, permanent. I closed the drawer and returned to my yellow legal pad. Next to step 1, I wrote, Marcus Webb, Monday 9 a.m., and underlined it twice. Monday morning, I dressed the way I used to dress for court. Pressed white shirt, navy tie, charcoal blazer. In the bathroom mirror, I straightened the knot until it sat perfectly centered. This wasn't casual business. This was professional engagement, and appearance mattered. I arranged documents in my briefcase by category: property deeds, tax receipts, utility bills, the canceled check for $25,000. The wine-stained leather folder from the dinner went on top. The stains had faded to brown but remained visible, a reminder of why I was doing this. Marcus Webb's office occupied the 3rd floor of a building in downtown Coral Gables, 10 minutes from the Spanish Villa. The waiting area featured modern furniture and walls lined with real estate law books, spines perfectly aligned, professional, organized, exactly what I needed. Marcus emerged from his office at 9 precisely, mid-40s, expensive suit, confident handshake. Judge Cooper, good to see you again. Retired judge, I corrected, and it's just Elbert now. His office overlooked Miracle Mile. I sat across from his desk and opened my briefcase, removing documents one by one. Property deed, tax receipts organized by year, insurance policies, utility statements, the canceled check, each document placed deliberately, creating a visual map of evidence. I own a house in Coral Gables, I began, using the same tone I'd used for opening statements. My son and his wife have occupied it rent-free for 3 years. No lease agreement exists. It's family. 2 weeks ago, they made clear their intention to sell the property immediately upon transfer and split the proceeds. I've decided to sell it myself. Marcus leaned forward, examining the deed. Registered solely in your name. Correct? Inherited from my parents. No co-owners, no liens, no encumbrances. He reviewed the tax receipts, nodding. You've maintained all financial obligations. Every payment for 3 years. Property taxes, insurance, utilities. They've paid nothing. I slid the spreadsheet across his desk. Total financial contribution, $115,000. Marcus studied the numbers, then looked up. Mr. Cooper, legally you're in an absolutely strong position. The house is yours. No lease agreement exists. I assume because it's family. Correct. No formal agreement. They asked to stay temporarily 3 years ago. I agreed. Then under Florida law, they're occupants without lease. You can sell the property at will. You're just obligated to provide 30 days written notice before they must vacate. The confirmation settled something in my chest. Not satisfaction exactly, but validation. My research had been accurate. The law was on my side. I want this handled quietly, I said. No advance warning. Find a buyer, close the deal, then notify them. Marcus tapped his pen against the desk. Understood. Typical closing takes 60 days. We'll need that time for title search, inspections, paperwork. You'll serve notice 30 days before closing. That's legally compliant, and gives them minimal time to interfere. Your fee? Full representation through closing, $8,500. Acceptable. When can we start? I'll draft the listing agreement today. We can have the property on market by week's end. He paused. One question. Personal property in the house. Furniture, belongings. Any concerns there? I'd anticipated this. Significant concerns. The house contains valuable pieces that belonged to my parents. Antique dining set, approximately $12,000. Rare book collection, another $7,000 or $8,000. Paintings. My grandfather's stamp collection. I need to remove them before the sale. You have absolute right to remove personal property, but given the tension, I'd recommend doing it carefully. Perhaps hire professionals? Already planned. I'll handle it this week. We shook hands. I left his office with a signed representation agreement and a clear timeline. 60 days to closing. 30 days notice to occupants. 90 days total until I'd never see that house, or them, again. The next 2 days I spent preparing for Wednesday's visit. I made lists of every valuable item I could remember in the house, particularly in my old study. The room Logan and Violet had avoided because it contained old stuff. My grandmother's mahogany dining set with 8 chairs. My father's law library, first editions of landmark cases. Paintings I'd inherited. That study held $30,000 in family heirlooms they'd ignored for 3 years. Wednesday morning arrived. I drove to Coral Gables, carrying a camera, tape measure, and my yellow legal pad. The driveway looked the same, but I felt different pulling into it. No nervousness, no anticipation, just cold purpose. Logan opened the door before I knocked. His eyes were shadowed, face drawn. Dad, thank you for coming. Listen, about last week, Violet was just... She gets emotional about money, but she didn't mean... Not now, Logan. I'm here on business. Business? What business? Dad, can we just talk about... I brushed past him. Where's the key to the study? The study? It's unlocked, but why... I walked down the hall without answering. Violet's absence registered immediately. She was home. I could sense it, but staying in the bedroom. Demonstrative contempt. She couldn't even bother to face me. The study looked exactly as I'd left it 3 years ago. Mahogany furniture gleaming, books lining 2 walls, paintings hung precisely where my father had placed them. I set my camera on the desk and began systematically photographing each piece. Multiple angles, close-ups of maker's marks, measurements recorded on my legal pad. Logan appeared in the doorway. What are you doing? I didn't look up. Inventory of personal property. These items belong to me. I have every right to document my own possessions. But why now? What's going on? I'm clarifying ownership. I photographed the dining set, counting chairs, noting the carved legs. These pieces were never part of the house. They're my personal property. He shifted his weight, hands in pockets. You're not going to take all this stuff, are you? These things have always been here. They're part of the house. I stopped photographing and turned to face him, made eye contact, held it until he looked away. Logan, these pieces belong to my parents. My grandmother's dining set, my father's book collection. They were never part of the house structure. They're mine. I'll remove them when the time comes. When the time comes? What does that mean? Dad, you're scaring me. Good. I returned to photographing. He stood in the doorway another 5 minutes, then disappeared. I heard murmured voices from the bedroom. Him reporting to Violet, probably. I didn't care. The inventory took 90 minutes. Every piece documented, measured, cataloged. When finished, I walked to the front door. Logan materialized from the kitchen. Dad? I nodded once, acknowledgement, not warmth, and left. In my car, I pulled out my phone and searched. Antique appraisal Coral Gables. The top result showed 4.9 stars, 200 reviews. Timeless treasures. Owner, Ruth Castellano. Specializes in estate appraisals and furniture authentication. I composed an email. Ms. Castellano, I need professional appraisal of antique furniture and rare books at a property in Coral Gables. The items include early 20th century mahogany dining set, collection of first edition legal texts, and various estate pieces. I may also need assistance with careful removal and storage. Available next week, Elbert Cooper. I reread it, deleted my son and his wife live there currently, and replaced it with nothing. Sent. Driving home, my phone pinged. Ruth's response, Mr. Cooper, I'd be happy to help with your appraisal. I can schedule a visit next week. Would Tuesday morning work for you? I pulled over and typed, Tuesday at 10 a.m. I'll coordinate with current occupants. Not my son. Occupants. I sent the message and merged back into traffic, heading toward Coconut Grove. Step 2 was progressing exactly as planned. The following Monday morning, I arrived at the Coral Gables house 10 minutes before Ruth. I'd told Logan this was a professional insurance appraisal. Plausible, unalarming. He'd agreed nervously over the phone, promising he and Violet would stay out of the way. Ruth's SUV pulled into the driveway at exactly 10. She stepped out wearing simple linen pants and a crisp white blouse, silver hair pulled into an elegant low bun. She carried a leather tool case in one hand and a tablet in the other. Everything about her movements suggested quiet competence. No rushing, no hesitation. Logan opened the door before we reached it. Good morning. You must be the appraiser. He extended his hand. Ruth shook it briefly. Ruth Castellano. I'm here to assess estate pieces for Mr. Cooper. Professional, courteous, nothing more. Violet appeared behind Logan, dressed carefully in a way that suggested she'd spent time preparing. Hello. I'm Violet, Logan's wife. We live here. She smiled, extending her hand with exaggerated warmth. This is such a beautiful home, isn't it? Ruth's handshake was even briefer. Ruth Castellano. Then she turned to me. Shall we begin, Mr. Cooper? I'd like to examine the mahogany set first while the morning light is optimal. Violet's smile faltered. I led Ruth to the study, leaving Violet standing in the hallway, dismissed without rudeness, simply through professional focus. In the study, Ruth set down her case and pulled out white cotton gloves. She put them on before touching anything. The gesture struck me, reverence for objects, respect for preservation. She ran her gloved hand along the dining table's edge, examining the carved details. Then she knelt, using her phone's flashlight to check underneath for maker's marks. Caribbean mahogany, she said quietly, her fingers tracing the wood grain. Hand-carved details, original finish. You can see the joinery technique here. 1920s craftsmanship. She pulled out a small jeweler's loupe, examining the carving more closely. Pre-revolution Cuban work. This is extraordinary. It was my grandmother's, I said. She brought it from Havana in 1959. Ruth looked up at me. Then it's not just valuable monetarily, it's irreplaceable. She photographed the set from multiple angles, made notes on her tablet. Current market value, $15,000 to $18,000. Possibly more to the right collector, but I suspect you're not interested in selling. Not yet. She moved to the bookshelves, running her gloved finger along the spines. When she reached my father's legal collection, she paused, carefully removed a volume. First edition Blackstone's Commentaries, 1803. She opened it at the spine's natural breakpoint, photographed the title page. Remarkable condition. The binding is original, sheep's leather. My father's prize piece. He had excellent taste. This is worth 3,000 minimum, possibly 5 to the right collector. She continued examining books, handling each with the same careful respect. Violet appeared in the doorway. So how much is all this worth? Her voice had an edge, calculating. Just curious. Ruth didn't look up from the book she was photographing. My report goes to Mr. Cooper. If he chooses to share details with you, that's his decision. Professional boundary established. Violet's mouth tightened. She disappeared again. For the next 2 hours, Ruth worked methodically. She examined paintings, measured furniture, photographed my grandfather's stamp collection. Every item documented with photographs, measurements, condition notes. At one point, I found myself alone with her in the study. Logan had retreated somewhere. Violet had given up hovering. Ruth paused, looked at me directly. Mr. Cooper, may I ask something? Her voice was gentle but curious. Why are you having your own possessions appraised in what appears to be your own home? I hesitated. Something about her directness, her lack of judgment, made me answer honestly. Because this is no longer my home. I'm going to take what belongs to me before I leave. Permanently. She held my gaze for 3 seconds, then nodded once. I understand. Do you? Yes, I do. No prying questions, no demands for explanation, just acceptance. Ruth returned to her tablet, made a few more notes. Then, you'll need help removing these pieces. They're fragile, valuable, and based on the tension I'm sensing here, you'll want this done discreetly, quietly. Am I correct? Very. I have a professional team. We can do this in one day when the house is empty. Climate-controlled truck, proper equipment, secure storage. She looked at me. If you trust me. I studied her face, the calm intelligence in her brown eyes, the steadiness of her posture. 3 years of manipulation had taught me to recognize genuine transparency. I saw it here. How much? 3,000 for removal and first month of climate-controlled storage. If you later choose to sell through my gallery, I take standard 20% commission. No pressure to sell. No hidden fees. She stated the terms without hesitation. Clear. Direct. That works. Ruth nodded. I'll need a day's notice to arrange the crew. You let me know when. We moved to the living room to finish the assessment. When Ruth completed her work, she handed me her business card. Simple, elegant design. Timeless treasures. Ruth Castellano. Estate appraisals and authentication. At the door, she paused. Mr. Cooper, I don't know your full story. I don't need to know. But I recognize someone protecting what rightfully belongs to them. That takes courage. Or stubbornness? She smiled slightly. Sometimes they're the same thing. After Ruth left, I drove back to my condo. That evening, an email arrived. I opened the attachment, a comprehensive PDF report. Every item photographed, appraised, with detailed condition notes and market values. Completely professional. Then I scrolled to the bottom. A handwritten note, scanned. If you ever need someone to simply talk to, my door's open. I know how betrayal by loved ones hurts. I survived it. You will too. Ruth. I stared at that note for several minutes. Someone saw. Someone understood. For the first time in weeks, the cold determination inside me thawed slightly. Not weakness, just the recognition that I wasn't completely alone in this. I picked up my phone, started to type a response, then stopped, set the phone down, walked to my balcony overlooking the ocean. The waves moved in darkness below. Ruth's words echoed. I survived it. You will too. Maybe I would. 2 weeks later, Marcus called. Elbert, I have good news. Couple from Chicago, late 50s, looking for Florida retirement property. They love Spanish architecture, offering $182 million. That's below market, I said, though I knew it didn't matter. By $30,000, yes, but they're waiving inspection, paying cash, willing to close in 60 days. Clean deal. I'll take it. Excellent. Come by tomorrow to sign. I'll prepare the official notice for Logan and Violet. They'll receive it Monday. I hung up and immediately called Ruth. Can your team move everything this Saturday? Before the notice is delivered? Absolutely. I'll arrange it. Then I dialed Logan. He answered on the third ring. Dad, I need to collect personal items from the house Saturday. I'll have a moving truck from 9 to 3. It would be easier if you weren't there. Personal items? What items? Dad, I don't understand. I heard movement, then Violet's voice cutting in. She'd grabbed the phone. You can't just come here and take our things. This is our home. Violet, they're my belongings from my house. You'll receive a detailed list. Saturday, 9 a.m. I ended the call before she could respond. Saturday morning arrived clear and warm. I reached the house at 8:45. Ruth's specialized moving truck turned onto the street at exactly 9, followed by her SUV. 3 men stepped out, all wearing matching uniforms. Professional movers, not day laborers. Ruth carried a clipboard. Logan opened the door. His face looked drawn. Violet stood behind him, arms crossed, dressed as if she were attending a business meeting. They decided to stay, to monitor, to control what they could. Good morning, Ruth said pleasantly. We'll work as quickly as possible to minimize disruption. She handed Logan a document. This is the inventory we'll be removing. Everything listed was previously documented and photographed as Mr. Cooper's personal property. Logan took it, hands shaking slightly. He scanned the pages. 3 sheets, single-spaced. Photos attached. His mouth opened, closed. Ruth's crew began immediately. They moved with practiced efficiency. Furniture dollies, protective blankets, careful maneuvering. One man individually wrapped each leg of the mahogany dining chairs. Another used archival boxes for the rare books, placing acid-free tissue between volumes. Violet followed them, voice rising. That table has been here for years. It's part of the house. You can't just take it. Ruth turned to her, expression neutral. Ma'am, this furniture is documented as the property owner's personal